England looking quietly impressive as they opened their November campaign with a win over the Wallabies. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Very good display from England in this one, and you can see over the last kind of year or so they really have been just going up through the gears and really looking like a team that could be a threat to anyone on their day. And it really was England's day today, I have to say. But we start off with Tupou into the side of a ruck. England go to the corner from the penalty. They secure the ball, move it inside, forward with a cross kick to Boso. He can't collect the pass, but we're playing advantage, so back for penalty. More pressure on the line, another England penalty. They tap, and then Joe Hayes gets held up over the line. Great defence from the Wallabies, but already warning signs there that England are really up for this. There's then a period of kick tennis, both teams looking to play in the opposition territory. During that period, we have a couple of breaks from England. First from Freeman. Decent enough run, but he did have Boso outside him. Could have given the ball and maybe they would have got a bit further. And then Boso himself counters and, slicing through, zigzagging through the defence, getting the crowd on their feet. But ultimately, those don't come to anything, but again, showing that threat that England have. And probably, Boso, I thought, was a little bit quiet in the game. That was probably the one moment that really had. England then, first points on the board, comes from a high ball. It's actually claimed by Australia, but then they infringe the breakdown. Ford opens the scoring from the tee, 3 points to nil. England then strike from the restart. They claim it deep, hoist it in the air, claimed by Stewart against Suilihi, gives it to Underhill. He moves it inside then to Earl. He's got the pace to go under the post from distance, converted for 10 points to nil. And now, with pressure on the England line, Australia beginning to show something. They go to the corner twice from penalties, but England managed to make the ball unplayable in the maul from the second penalty and they turn it over. England then with a lightning attack, slicing through the Australia defence into 22. Ben Earl goes to the line, looking for a second try, but Potter did really well, gets under him and under the ball, holds it up. Fantastic defence from Australia. But again, not offering enough really going the other way. England piling more pressure in the 22, basically looking to have, a decent lead at half time. They're about 5 metres out. They go wide, but Potter intercepts from Dingwall, and he goes the length of the field to get Australia on the board, converted for 10 points to 7. And a couple of phases earlier, England actually had the chance to go wide to someone in a better position, and they kind of decided not to do that, kept the ball, recycle, and then by the time that they did want to go wide, Potter was ready there for the intercept. Then we have Ford just before halftime, clever kick in behind on a turnover. Roebuck beats Kellaway for pace, but then Williams, just long strides, managed to get there and dot it down first. Drop out to Australia. Clock is in the red, so it's almost half time. But referee reminds Edmund that he's got to, he can't kick it straight out. So he decides to go for a grubber kick to kick it out that way. But he managed to grubber kick it to Finn Baxter. But luckily for him, Australia turned the ball back over and they do get it out for half time, 10 points to 7. Australia, in the game on the scoreboard, not really in it in terms of performance. In the second half then, Australia do begin to produce something a little bit better, looking at more competitive for the first few minutes of the half, and offering something going forward, to keeping the ball in hand more. I think that was more a reaction to the fact that England were winning that aerial battle, and they didn't want to just give more fodder to England in that case. So they attack off a line out on the edge of 22. Pasami, with a strong carry. They've got numbers out wide on the left as well. But England crucially managed to slow the ball down. They folded the defence over, and eventually they turned the ball over. Could have been a turning point in the game there if Australia had got in for a score. England then, they disrupted an Australian line out, forcing them to shovel it back over their own line, where Valentini has to dot it down. But it's a scrum to Australia because there was a knock on from England earlier, and Australia managed to clear after 2 scrums, but they haven't relieved the pressure. Stewart, he gets up again in the air, taps a high ball back on the England side. Pollock, with a great pickup, scoops it off the ground, bursts into the 22. Kellaway manages to tap tackle him, but he's not held, so Pollock back to his feet, over to score. Conversion missed, 15 points to 7, but now England have a little bit of breathing room on the scoreboard. England then turning the screw, and they force a penalty from an impressive maul that really had momentum. They go to the corner, they drive it forward again, but a little bit sloppy as they knock on in the maul, and you felt like they probably could have had the winning of the game there. Didn't really matter though, because not long after, they managed to force a penalty before Australia are able to clear the ball. Another good maul, and Mitchell snipes to ground on the line. Conversion missed, but that should be a game, 20 points to 7. England then drive another maul, this one from outside of the 22. Australia not able to cope with it all. Cowan-Dickey loses a boot on the way to the try line, but manages to score. Conversion missed, 25-7. With the clock in the red then, we have a couple of rounds of handbags, as obviously frustration from the Australians boiling over. And sure, there's plenty of sledging going on from the England side as well, which it's what rugby is. Pollock then goes to the bin. England, they're conceding penalties on their own line, and he's the one, referee just says it's too many, off you go. But then England do manage to hold Australia up over the line to end the game, denied them a consolation try. 25-7 is the final score. And very good performance by England. Normally at this stage we would be having a bit of a chat about some of the stats from the game, etc. But normally I get to, for these November games, I get the stats on ESPN, but they're not doing it for the whatever reason at the minute. So that's a little bit unfortunate. But I'll give you kind of the overall kind of impression between the two teams. So let's start with set piece. England definitely had the nudge in the scrum. They won a couple of penalties there. And you could see that Australia definitely under pressure on their own ball, trying to get that ball out as quickly as possible. Both Bell and Tupou coming under pressure at certain times in the first half. England with their stronger front row coming off the bench as well, continued applying that pressure in the second half too. Then line out, England were disrupting the Australian line out and making it very hard for them to secure clean ball from there. And then the England maul, a real weapon, especially in that second half, where they they did a kind of a bomb squad thing when they brought on a bunch of forwards around about 50 minutes all at the same time, just gave them that impetus of fresh legs. And Australia really did struggle against that maul, especially, as I said, in that second half. Then looking at some of the defense and attack, England looking very comfortable, I felt, in defense a lot of the time. Again, Australia's only score of the game came from an intercept try, and Australia, they did go multi-phase, but it was very reminiscent, honestly, of the latter days of Joe Schmidt with Ireland, where they were going multi-phase, but the players receiving the ball were standing very deep and they weren't coming onto the ball at any kind of pace. So England were able to, they were coming up quick. They did that kind of umbrella thing to prevent balls going out to the width, where Australia might have got some joy, but the chances of probably intercepts was a bit too much for them to risk those passes, I think. And it meant that, a lot of time Australia, they may have been keeping onto the ball, but after 5-6 phases, they were maybe 5-10 meters back from where they started, and then they'd have to go to the air then. And, Stewart was really good in the air for England, so didn't work out well for them. Then in attack, England looking the more threatening of the two sides. I thought, Roebuck looked lively. Faye also really only saw him with that one counter-attack in the first half and kind of drifted out of the game. I thought Mitchell and Ford went well at the halfbacks. There were a couple of errors from Ford, and I think, Ford now is the kind of the new Owen Farrell, I think, in terms of certain sections of England fans and media, whereby if the result goes against England, they'll pick apart, any little mistake that he makes and really kind of blow it up. So, but I thought overall he had a decent game. Kick from the tee wasn't brilliant. There will be games in this November where they're going to need every single point. And, the fact that I think he only converted one of the tries could be an issue, but that's something, he could easily fix for the next game or whenever he starts again. As I said, Freddie Stewart, brilliant in the air. And something I liked about him too was he added more in terms of attack, running the ball back, than we've seen, previously from him. It's obviously been a work on for him, and he looked better. He's no Furbank or Marcus Smith in terms of threat running the ball back, but at least he's doing it and giving options as well. But so good in the air, and I think maybe certainly in this game it was very much horses for courses. Where, last year Suilihi was dominant in the air for Australia. Stewart won those battles today, and it really showed the fact that Australia did not want to go to the air at all in the second half if they could avoid it. And that's credit to Freddie Stewart. He's another guy who's had his detractors, and, he was out of the team for a while. He's back in now. Whether, it's going to be a permanent thing. I think he's another one kind of like George Ford, where it feels like he's one per performance away from being labelled as someone who should never play for England again type deal. But, he had a very good game today. I thought Erb was brilliant in the back row as well. And, Pepper went well there too. I thought that actually the whole back row had a measure of their Australian counterparts. We did. Wilson, I thought, had some decent input from Australia, but just not enough. And then the centre pairing, it'll be interesting to see, in a more even contest, if they stick with Dingwall and Freeman, how those guys go there, or whether. I thought Roebuck was good on the wing, but are they going to move maybe, Freeman back out and make room for Lawrence, or what they're going to do with that? I think that's kind of an interesting one too. But overall, a very good performance from England. Australia, they've been good this year, and this is probably one of the poorest, if not the poorest, performance of this year so far. I think they will get better as November gets on. Like, you see it a lot, like, a team, they go in to have a performance like that, and then they get torn apart by their own media, their fans, wherever, coaches on them as well, and then they produce a reaction in the next game. So I'm expecting a big performance for Australia in their next game, but England really looking good so far this November.